Leave. Only family is allowed here. Those were my father's exact words to me. And he said them at my own sister's wedding. I had just flown 18 hours to be there. I was standing on a gravel path outside a beautiful wedding venue, still holding my carry-on suitcase. Soft violin music drifted through the open doors behind him. Guests laughed inside. Champagne glasses clinked softly. Warm white lights glowed through the windows. And my father stood in the doorway like I was a stranger. My mother stood 2 steps behind him. She said nothing at all. 3 days later she called me about something else. A wedding bill. $38,000. And somehow my name was on it. That phone call changed everything. My name is Victoria Bennett. I am 34 years old. I live in London and I work in compliance consulting. My job is simple to explain. I read contracts for a living. I look for missing details. I look for hidden risks. I look for the small lies that people hope nobody will ever notice. My family forgot exactly what I do for a living. And they made one very big mistake. They thought I wouldn't notice what they had done. Growing up in the Bennett house always felt uneven, like the floor was tilted just slightly in one direction. There were 2 versions of childhood happening under the same roof. There was Lauren's version. My younger sister got birthday parties. She got praise. He got attention. She got support always without asking for it. When she turned 16, our father bought her a used Honda Civic. He parked it in the driveway with a giant red bow tied around it. He called her my little star in front of everyone who would listen. Then there was my version. I filled out my own college applications alone at the public library, because nobody ever reminded me when the deadlines were coming. I worked tutoring jobs after school just to save enough money. Nobody helped me pack. Nobody drove me to college on my first day. I learned early, very early, that if I wanted something done, I had to do it myself. My father, Richard Bennett, owned a small building supply store in Charlotte. He talked about that store like it was some kind of empire. In reality, it was a small building with a leaking roof and a handful of workers who never seemed to stay very long. My mother, Evelyn, spent most of her life agreeing with whatever my father said. Keeping the peace in our house usually meant pushing every problem in my direction because I was always the easier child to disappoint. Lauren was different. She was pretty, funny, and effortlessly charming. She truly believed the world would always make space for her. And most of the time it did. I left home at 18 with a partial scholarship and money I had saved myself, dollar by dollar. Years later I moved to London for work. I built an entire life there from nothing. A small flat in Canary Wharf. Quiet mornings with tea and silence. Long working days. A space that belonged completely only to me. I like to say I didn't leave home. Home left me first. Then one Tuesday afternoon in September, a wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox. It was a heavy cream envelope with gold lettering, printed on expensive paper. Someone had spent real money on it. Inside was an invitation to the wedding of Lauren Bennett and Nathan Brooks, to be held at the Blackwood Manor in Charlotte. I searched the venue online out of curiosity. Crystal chandeliers. Perfect gardens. A massive ballroom. A place that cost more money than my parents usually spent in years. That detail confused me right away. But what really stopped me was a handwritten note tucked inside the envelope. It wouldn't be complete without you. Please come. L. I stared at those words for a long time. For 7 years, my family had barely contacted me unless they needed something. Birthdays were quick, empty texts. Christmas was sometimes a group message sent to everyone at once. But now suddenly Lauren wanted me there. Or at least that's what I believed. So I booked the flight. London to Charlotte. 18 hours. A ridiculous amount of money for an economy seat in December. I told myself I wasn't going because everything was forgiven. I told myself I was going because part of me still hoped things could be different. My closest friend from college, Chloe Parker, texted me the moment I told her. "You're actually going?" I should have listened more carefully to the way she asked that question. When I landed in Charlotte, everything felt familiar and strange at the same time. The southern accents. The humid winter air. The smell of airport coffee and fast food. I picked up my rental car and drove straight to a hotel near the university. I had stopped staying with my parents years ago. Nobody ever questioned that anymore. I unpacked slowly that first night, hanging the navy dress in the small hotel closet, smoothing it with my hands like it might wrinkle just from sitting there. I kept telling myself this trip was simple. Fly in, attend the wedding, smile for a few photos, fly home. I didn't need anything complicated to happen. I just needed one afternoon where my family treated me like I belonged. That night I called Lauren. "Hey," she answered quickly. "You made it. Anything I should know about tomorrow?" I asked. "Just be there by 2. Ceremony starts at 3. Her voice sounded clipped and nervous, like someone standing in a crowded room, trying very hard not to say too much. "I have to go," she said suddenly. "Wedding stuff." Then she hung up. I called my mother next. The very first thing she said was, "Oh, you actually came." Not, "I'm happy you're here." Not, "I missed you." Just surprised that I had shown up at all. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed after that call ended and stared at the wall for a long time. Something felt wrong. I just couldn't name it yet. The next afternoon I dressed carefully. A navy dress. Pearl earrings. Low heels. Simple and elegant. The Blackwood Manor looked exactly as beautiful as it had online. White lights wrapped around every tree. Music floated softly through the air. Guests stood near the fountains, laughing together in small groups. For one tiny second I let myself believe things had really changed. Then I saw my father standing outside the entrance. He wasn't greeting guests. He was waiting for me. "Victoria," he said as I walked closer, my suitcase rolling behind me on the gravel. "You need to leave." I stopped walking. "Excuse me. Only family is allowed." I held up the invitation, my hand trembling slightly. "I was invited." "That was a mistake," he said, his voice completely flat. "You shouldn't have come." Through the glass doors behind him, I could see Lauren in her wedding dress, laughing with her bridesmaids. My mother stood nearby, close enough to hear every word. She didn't step outside. She didn't defend me. She didn't move at all. "Dad," I whispered. "Don't do this. The guests are inside." "Walk away," he snapped. I looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something, anything that looked like regret. I found nothing there. Not a flicker of guilt. Not a second of hesitation. Just a man standing firmly between me and my own sister's wedding, guarding a door like it belonged to him alone. "Please," I said one more time, quieter now. "I flew 18 hours, Dad." "Then you wasted a flight," he said. Those words landed harder than anything else he had said. I felt my throat tighten, but I refused to let him see me break down right there on the gravel, in front of a venue full of strangers who would never know my name. So I swallowed it down. I turned around. I walked back across the gravel path, pulling my suitcase behind me, got into my rental car, locked the doors, and finally let myself cry. Not because I had missed the wedding. Because I had let myself hope. That night, still wearing the navy dress, I sat in my hotel room with the television playing silently in the background. I called Chloe. "They did what?" she shouted. I told her everything. The invitation. My father blocking the entrance. My mother watching in silence. Lauren laughing inside while I stood outside holding an invitation that nobody had honored. Chloe went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Victoria, people don't do something this extreme without a reason." "You don't know my family," I said. "No," she replied slowly. "I think something else is going on here. Something you don't know yet." I almost flew home the next morning. I even opened the airline website and stared at an earlier flight back to London for nearly 10 minutes. But I didn't book it. 3 days passed. Nobody called. Nobody apologized. I worked remotely from my hotel room during the day and tried very hard not to think about the wedding at night. Then I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Lauren had posted dozens of wedding photos. The flowers. The cake. The dancing. Sunset pictures by the fountain. A honeymoon countdown. There wasn't a single photo of me. Not one caption mentioned that I had even been there. Then my mother posted a photo collage. Old family pictures. Baby photos of Lauren. And one old photo of me and Lauren sitting together on the porch as little girls. The caption underneath said, "So proud of both my girls." I stared at the word both for a very long time. If I was really one of her girls, why was I left standing outside in the cold? The next morning my mother finally called. But she wasn't calling to apologize. "We need to discuss the bill," she said, her voice cold and businesslike. "What bill?" "The venue. It's $38,000. I frowned, confused. "Hey, how are you planning to pay it?" The room suddenly felt colder. Why would I pay for Lauren's wedding? I asked. You signed the contract, she said. My heart stopped completely. What? You're the guarantor, she said like it was obvious. Then my father grabbed the phone from her. Don't play dumb, Victoria. Your name is on the paperwork. I stood up slowly, my legs suddenly unsteady. I never signed anything. Then who did? He snapped. I don't know, I said carefully. But it wasn't me. He hung up on me. I sat frozen on the edge of the hotel bed for a long time. Then something inside me shifted. I stopped feeling hurt and I started paying attention. I called the Blackwood Manor immediately. A woman named Melissa answered the phone. I explained everything to her, calmly and clearly. My name is Victoria Bennett, I said. I understand I'm listed as the guarantor for the Bennett wedding. But I never signed that agreement. Silence. Then Melissa spoke carefully. Miss Bennett, if that's true, this is extremely serious. I know, I said. I'd like a copy of the contract, please. Then I called Chloe. It's real, I told her. She didn't panic. She became completely focused. Okay, she said. How we work. The family pressure started almost immediately. My Aunt Margaret called first. Honey, your mother is devastated, she said gently. She says you promised to help pay. I never promised anything. Then came the emails, the texts, the voicemails. Family first. Don't destroy your parents over money. You make good money, just pay it. 22 relatives, all repeating the same story. That I had agreed to help. That I was breaking a promise. That I was being selfish. I saved every single message. Every voicemail. Every screenshot. In compliance work, documentation matters. It matters even more when someone else is rewriting your entire story without you. Some nights I lay awake listening to those voicemails again, hearing the same practiced sadness in every relative's voice, like they had all read from the same script before calling me. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody asked why I had been left standing outside a wedding I flew 18 hours to attend. They only asked when I would pay. Then my cousin Ethan texted me, breaking the pattern. Something feels off, he wrote. I don't think they're telling the whole truth. Out of 22 people, he was the only one who questioned anything at all. Then Lauren called. You need to just pay the bill, she said, her voice tight and impatient. I laughed once, a short, disbelieving sound. You kicked me out of your wedding. That was Dad's decision. But you let it happen. Silence. Then she sighed. Look, Dad handled the contract months ago. It's done. Just pay it and move on. I never signed anything. You can afford it, she snapped. I leaned back slowly against the headboard. Did you know Dad used my name? 5 long seconds passed. Then she said quietly, it doesn't matter. That told me absolutely everything I needed to know. My father called again the next day. This time he tried threats. I talked to a guy who knows real estate law, he said, sounding proud of himself. The contract is legally binding. Did your buddy explain what happens if the signature was forged? I asked calmly. Silence. Then anger. You think you're smarter than everybody because you live in London. No, I said. I just know what forgery means. Another silence followed. That silence mattered more than anything he could have said, because innocent people deny accusations immediately without hesitation. Guilty people pause first. Then my mother called me alone. At first she sounded emotional, almost sad. Then, without meaning to, she accidentally told me the truth. We had no choice, she cried. The venue needed a guarantor. Our credit was ruined. I sat up straighter, my whole body suddenly alert. So you used my information? We had your social security number and old tax papers from your room. My chest tightened painfully. You forged my signature. We didn't steal anything, she snapped suddenly. You're our daughter. There was the confession hiding inside her own defense. She didn't even seem to realize what she had just admitted out loud. To her, using my name felt like a small, forgivable thing, something owed to her simply because I was her child. She had no idea how serious it actually was, and somehow that frightened me more than the forgery itself. A few days later, Ethan warned me about an upcoming family brunch. My mother was gathering everyone together. Apparently, the goal was to help Victoria see reason. Chloe laughed when I told her. They think they're staging an intervention, she said. What if they are? Then let them, she said simply. Sunday morning the contract finally arrived in my email. I opened the PDF slowly, my hands cold. There it was. The guarantor agreement. My name typed neatly across the top of the page and below it, a signature. Victoria Bennett. But it wasn't my handwriting. Someone had tried to copy it. The loops looked wrong. The slant was wrong. The pressure of the pen was wrong. I opened my passport and placed it beside the contract. My real signature sat there, clear and familiar. The two signatures didn't match. Not even close. That's not my signature, I whispered to the empty room. Chloe came to my hotel that same afternoon. We sat together at the small desk, reviewing everything line by line. That's textbook forgery, she said. I wrote a formal letter to the venue's legal department. I explained everything clearly. I attached a copy of my real signature from my passport. I requested a full investigation. Chloe added one final sentence to the letter. Please preserve the original document for forensic analysis. Then we waited. A day later the venue replied. They were officially investigating the signature, and they had suspended all collection efforts against me immediately. Chloe smiled when she read the email over my shoulder. They already believe you. Then Melissa, the event coordinator, sent me another message privately. She remembered exactly who had dropped off the contract in person. An older gentleman, she wrote. He signed the paperwork himself at the front desk. My father. My father had walked into that venue and signed my name himself like my identity belonged to him. Sunday finally arrived. The brunch. The family meeting. The public pressure campaign ready to begin. I dressed carefully. A white blouse. A navy blazer. Professional. Controlled. The folder sat on the passenger seat beside me in the car. The contract copy. My passport. The letters from the venue. Everything organized tab by tab, exactly the way I organize evidence for work. When I walked into Aunt Margaret's house, 15 people looked up at once. My father sat at the head of the table. My mother sat beside him. Lauren sat next to Nathan. There wasn't even a chair set out for me. Ethan quietly stood up and brought one in from the kitchen without a word. Then my father began speaking. We're here because Victoria made a commitment and she refuses to honor it. My mother dabbed at fake tears with a napkin. We didn't want this to become public. Lauren looked down at her plate sadly. I just wanted my sister at my wedding. The performance was impressive. Everyone around the table started speaking at once. Victoria, just do the right thing. Your parents could lose their home. You make enough money. Nobody, not one single person, asked if the story was even true. They simply accepted it. But then I noticed Nathan. He looked confused. What contract? He whispered to Lauren. She replied quietly, I'll explain later. That was interesting. He didn't know anything. My father finally looked at me, confident and calm. She can't defend herself because she knows she signed it. That's when I stood up. The whole room went silent. I placed the contract in the center of the table. This is the guarantor agreement everyone keeps talking about, I said. Then I placed my passport beside it. And this is my real signature. People leaned forward slowly. Aunt Margaret picked up the papers first. Then Uncle Samuel. Then even Cousin Olivia finally looked up from her phone. The difference was obvious to everyone. These signatures don't match, I said calmly. The Blackwood Manor is officially investigating forgery. I placed the legal letter beside the contract. My father's face turned gray. That's ridiculous, he said weakly. You probably signed it electronically. No, I said. The venue coordinator confirmed that an older gentleman signed the paperwork in person. Silence filled the room. A heavy, terrible silence. Then Aunt Margaret slowly turned to look at my father. Richard, did you forge her signature? He opened his mouth. He closed it again. Finally he whispered, we had no choice. Uncle Samuel stood up immediately. You committed fraud? My mother started crying, really crying this time. We were desperate. Then Nathan turned to Lauren. You knew. She grabbed his arm. Nathan, it was complicated. You knew your father forged your sister's name, he said. It's a crime. The room exploded into noise. Questions, arguments, shock, anger all at once. Aunt Margaret kept repeating, Richard, how could you do this to her? While Uncle Samuel paced behind his chair, running a hand over his face. My mother reached toward my father's arm, but he pulled it away. Lauren sat frozen, her fork still resting in her hand, untouched food in front of her. Nathan stared at his own plate like he couldn't bring himself to look at anyone at the table. And through all of it I stayed calm. I stood there quietly until I finally raised one hand. Silence returned. "I'm not pressing charges," I said. Everyone stared at me, stunned into silence again, but for a different reason this time. "But I want everyone here to understand 3 things." I held up one finger. "I never signed that contract." Second finger. "I flew 18 hours for Lauren's wedding and was thrown out, because my father was afraid I'd discover the truth." Third finger. "I will not carry debts that were never mine." My mother started crying harder. "Victoria, please." "No," I said softly. "I'm done being the person this family only calls when they need money or a signature or someone to blame." I gathered my papers slowly and calmly. Then I looked around the room one last time, meeting every eye that would meet mine. "Kindness is not a contract," I said. "And family is not a blank check." Then I walked out. Nobody stopped me. Outside, the winter air felt cold and clean against my face. As I reached my car, I heard shouting through the open window behind me. Nathan's voice, sharp and furious. "You lied to me about the money. You lied about your sister. What else did you lie about?" I didn't stay to listen to the answer. Ethan came outside a minute later, his hands in his pockets. "That took guts," he said quietly. "You helped," I told him. He shrugged. "Most people inside are on your side now." "What about Nathan?" "He says he needs space." I nodded and then I drove away. Monday morning, while checking out of the hotel, I received the final email from the Blackwood Manor. The investigation was complete. The signature did not match mine. The guarantor agreement was officially void. All $38,000 in debt returned to the original contracting parties, Richard and Evelyn Bennett. I stood in the hotel lobby reading that email over and over again. Finally it was over. I owed nothing. 3 days after I returned to London, Lauren called. Her voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. "We cancelled Bali," she said quietly. "Nathan says he can't trust me." I stayed silent, waiting. "He wants us to use the honeymoon money to help pay the venue. Are you going to?" I asked. "I think I have to." Then she started crying, real crying this time, not a performance, not manipulation. Just pain. "I was wrong," she whispered. "Yes," I said gently. "You were. How do I fix it?" "You start by telling the truth." The call ended quietly after that. No magical ending. No instant forgiveness. Just honesty for the first time in a very long while. A week later my father called. The venue was threatening legal action. He had sold his truck. He had sold store equipment, trying desperately to pay the debt. Then he admitted something else. "I also signed your name for the table and chair rentals," he said quietly. "Another $4,500. I closed my eyes. "Dad, I'm not saving you from this." "I know," he whispered. Then for the first time in years he apologized without a single excuse attached to it. "I thought you'd quietly pay it," he admitted. "Because that's what you've always done." "Yes," I said. And that honesty hurt more than the forgery did. Because he was right. I had spent years quietly cleaning up everyone else's messes without ever being asked if I wanted to. Not anymore. Months passed. Life slowly changed for all of us. Richard and Evelyn started a payment plan with the venue. My mother took a part-time job at a local grocery store. Lauren and Nathan began going to counseling together. The venue chose not to press criminal charges against my father. One afternoon my mother mailed me a handwritten letter. It said, "I'm learning what it means to earn a relationship instead of demanding one." I didn't answer right away. Not because I hated her. Because I was finally learning that I didn't have to rush to fix everything for everyone else all the time. Back in London, life became quieter. Steadier. I started saying yes to things again. Dinner invitations. Weekend trips. Long conversations with people who actually cared about me without conditions attached. For years I had confused independence with isolation. I thought strength meant needing nobody at all. But Chloe taught me something different over cups of tea in my small kitchen. Sometimes strength means letting good people stay close. Months later I finally called Lauren again. The conversation was simple this time. "How's work?" she asked. "Busy." "How's Nathan?" We're working on things, she said quietly. Then she paused. I'm glad you called. And this time I believed her. Not because everything was fixed between us, but because for once, there was no hidden agenda underneath her words. No request. No manipulation. Just honesty. Now it's spring in London. I still think about that wedding sometimes. The gravel path under my feet. The violin music drifting through the open doors. My father telling me that only family was allowed inside. In a strange way he was right. The problem was that he had forgotten what family actually means. Family isn't a performance for guests to admire. It isn't fake wealth borrowed to impress strangers. It isn't using someone else's name like it belongs to you. Family is a choice. It's not blood alone, and it's certainly not a signature copied onto a piece of paper without permission. It's Chloe bringing coffee to my hotel room when I almost gave up and went home. It's Ethan sending me screenshots because he knew the truth mattered more than keeping the peace. It's Lauren finally speaking honestly, after years of pretending everything was fine. It's the quiet, steady people who show up without asking anything in return, the ones who never once made me feel like a burden simply for existing. I think about that gravel path often, and every time I do I feel a little less pain than the time before. That's how healing seems to work. Not all at once, but slowly, one honest conversation at a time. I still keep my passport on the shelf beside my desk. My signature is inside it. Cling. Certain. My name is Victoria Bennett. I live alone in a small flat beside the river. I read contracts for a living. And I finally understand something important. Saying no to what hurts you is also saying yes to yourself. Nobody signs my name but me. And now finally that's enough. That's my story. And if it connected with you, thank you for staying until the end. Maybe you've had to set boundaries with family too. Maybe you've been the person everyone only calls when they need help. Or maybe your story is completely different. Whatever it is, remember this. Your kindness should never cost your identity. And your name belongs to you.